to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Tom Dutta, like butter, with you here on the Quiet Warrior Show. Now, I want to talk about the word podcast. Way back when Apple came around, they invented this little thing. Do you remember it? The iPod? Well, that's gone now, so we are a show. Some of the best shows are called shows. So the Quiet Warrior Show. And so we're live streaming. So we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you can subscribe, like the show, that helps us share this story and helps get the awareness out about the topic that is very important today that our guest Ronald Hunter is going to share with us. Let me tell you about something I got in my hand here. Pretty excited about this book. This book is called Angel Finally Found His Wings. And on the back of it is the bio of the gentleman I'm going to bring on. So about Ron Hunter, he's a retired United States Army Sergeant, Desert Storm veteran from 1991. Eagle Scout 1976, Triple Palm and Order of the Arrow recipient. He played for three-time champions Garrity Knights Pop Warner football team in Brooklyn, New York. Wow. Receiving numerous awards, including Most Valuable Player in 1975. He attended Penn State University, is most recently retired from American Airlines. He currently resides in North Carolina with his spouse, Scott, and their three dachshunds. I hope I said that right. We got to get the names of those doggies. He enjoys music, theater, college football, but most importantly, he's got a really big story to share with us today. So welcome to the show, Ron Hunter.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Tom. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Ron, thanks for putting up with all that stuff that we were doing before. But now something's odd about the way you're looking today. You've got this background that's kind of blurry with some lights. It almost looks like you're on the Starship Enterprise. Where are you? Where are you, man?
Actually, my spouse, Scott, and I are traveling around the country just on our RV. We're in a motor coach traveling around right now. We're in Rock Springs, Wyoming. Just left the Jackson Hole. So it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And so for everybody out there, Vancouver, British Columbia here, the United States, coming together as one. Ron, let's get right into it. What we're going to do is go into what I call Plato's Garden. Plato's Garden is where we connect the dots. I'm currently involved in a doctoral program in London, and I learned about Plato's Garden. That's where we come and we do something called critical thinking. And that's where you connect the dots between, when you started all your work and brought this message out, what was going on in the sector where you were working? What was going on in your personal life? What was going on in the world? We're going to have stories and just get into everything. We'll take it wherever you want to go. So the first thing I want to do is ask you to hold up that book there.
Absolutely. And
it's a beautiful cover, especially because you're on it. And then just read out the title out loud for us. I'm going to full screen you.
Okay. It's Angel Finally Found His Wings, a story of finding trust, hope, faith, and the power of love.
Okay, I love that. And thank you very much. Put that down. We'll get it back up there. Everybody at the end will tell you where to go and get that. Ron, why don't we just ask the simplest question I can think of is, why did you write this book? And, what was it like to be exploited by a trusted community leader and forced into teen prostitution for 5 years? Because that's really the story we're unveiling today.
Correct. The thing that made me go forward to actually write the story, because I had been sharing bits of it as I was getting more strength over it and claiming myself back. But people had said, you need to write a book, man. People need to know about this. And I said, well, that's easier said than done, what happened was there was a program that Oprah Winfrey had done with 200 men who survived child sexual abuse. And it was after being a member of the audience there. My story wasn't featured, but in my observation of the people who were there and having spent several hours with them, I got to see it and witness so much pain still from what had happened to them. And it seemed that they were still many of them still stuck in the victimization part of it,
Yeah.
or the victim stage. And that was really hurting me because I knew that we can do better than that. And that I was fortunate enough to get to the place where I wasn't a victim. I passed the victimization, and I was a survivor at that point.
Yeah.
So that's what it did. I needed to tell them we can go better than this.
And how long did it take you to write the book? Because it's a good read. But it's a big book.
Yeah, it took approximately 13 years.
13 oh my goodness! Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna just share something else on the screen here. So first of all, I want to honor you for writing this book, and everybody. We're not even touching on the surface. There's going to be a lot more. So stay till the very end. We're going to be honoring Ron at the end as well with an award. So you want to stand for that, revealing the first international, at least from my perspective, review that will be posted online for this book. So check this out, Ron. Just playing with you a bit here. So that's me, my other cab in my studio. Hi there.
Yeah,
and now I want to show everybody this because I took this book seriously. Throughout the book, it literally is marked up with. You can see there so many things. I also have a little notebook, and I've gone through and I made 3 pages of references. That's how powerful this story was. One of the things I love about the format of your book is that each chapter is 2, 3, 4 pages. And so I just want to say to you, I love that, Ron, and I love your story because it makes it fly by. I felt like the book puts me into the journey, like the hero's journey, which is the story. Everyone, this is a hard book to read. But for some reason, Ron, as I was reading it, and my wife will tell you, I sat in the living room for a full day. I couldn't get away from it. And there was, each time the toughest pieces came, I wanted to know more about where the heck this story was going to end. So I want you to we're going to be going to chapter 4. It's called How Things Came to Be. If you can just get your book there. How Things Came to Be is chapter 4. And while you're just opening it up, I'm just going to read something really quickly. And tell me when you're there. So at the top of page 14, it says, how is it that I'm 13 years old and working as a hustler? Things happen slowly at first, then all at once. Talk about that chapter for us, how things came to be. And, I know there's some things in there about your dad and your siblings and other things like that.
Well, I guess how it began was just all the things that were taking place in my life with the loss of my dad, the mental illness that my mother was diagnosed with, which was not defined or specific at the time. But then with the disintegration of when my father died, my family dynamics changed with my brother's PTSD from Vietnam, which was quite severe. And that broke us all up. And what happened was it took me into, my mom was taken away to a mental institution, and I was taken off to orphanage and foster homes.
That's something, that's amazing. I mean, 13 years old, I'm thinking about this now, and I've done a lot of work in neuroscience because you might know this from my story if you've checked me out, but I had a brain injury in 2018, followed my head. That tell me, I always interrupt me and bring your feedback in on anything I say here, but that the child brain doesn't actually become the adult brain. That means we can't use the frontal lobe to rationalize and think if things are real and our thoughts till about age 25. As I'm reading this whole book, man, it's like age 5, age 7, age 13. I'm thinking like the things you endured through this story. So I want to touch on something. You mentioned about your father. He sounds like he had many great things. Tell us a bit more about that. He was Puerto Rican, right? And then
yes.
There's some pictures in the book that he's a very good-looking guy. And then he had something that happened. Yeah, something that happened with his health. And just fill in those blanks about how you guys came to another country. And typically he was the strength, and then something changed. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, my father, when I was doing my research and getting all the documentation to support what I was talking about, discovered my father's birth certificate actually says Spaniard. He was born in 1896.
Wow.
My father, yes. So that's a big shocker for me. And I said, "He's Spaniard." And then it became a American territory. from the Spain when they acquired it. So therefore he became a naturalized American citizen. But yeah, so that's the big thing I learned in this. The second thing is he was a very powerful, strong man in terms of the family, the patriarch. And when he brought his family over here, he was great health. But when he landed in New York, and I remind you that I'm learning a lot of this because I'm the 22nd of his children.
Yeah. Wow.
And so there were lots of them who were already adults and having their kids as well. But he came over and unfortunately he got very sick. The weather had gotten to him and it ended up having him deal with respiratory symptoms and illness. And it continually got worse and worse. And he never was able to really get his footing here on the mainland.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to see if I can hold it up here. There's I should have gotten actual pictures from you that were clearer, but this I'll just highlight up the camera. You can see there in the book, everyone, there's a collection of photos, and there's your dad there, and again, a very strapping guy. Man, the amount of numbers of children, that in itself is a book to write about how you do that. So going back, I mean, we're connecting dots here about the hero's journey, which is we're all connected by a thread, Ron, in our stories. And so as I'm reading this, I'm looking at stuff, and it's like I just made some notes here in the page. Your mom was widowed at age 21, and then when your father passed, and your mom, you talk about your mom being a servant. She was a very servant-like person, struggled with a lot of sadness, and there was another note here. Children of the first family resented her. Virginia died, then Margie, Daddy, Maria, Tony, Mary. Why did she have such a struggle within the family with that dynamic?
My being told by the family members was that my father, prior to coming into our life with my mom, was a womanizer. He was a man about the town. He was he raised cockfighting chicks, or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
And he was well known for that. He was a drinker, smoked his cigars. He would not come home and take care of the children as they felt he did with his second family, the second group of children. So that was a resentment they had because they felt, why couldn't he be who he is now when he was with us? Why did he give all this to them? And why did he treat their mom better than our mom, Yeah. So that was a real bit.
Yeah, before we move on to the story, thank you again, everyone. We're here with Ron Hunter. By the way, one of my best friends growing up was Ronnie Josephson. So every time I looked in the book as I Ronnie, I went, yes, pleasant memories coming back in my life.
Good.
We're still in chapter 4. I just wanted to say that some of us have experienced loss of a parent. It's a hard thing, right, Ron? And I know your dynamic. My dad passed in 2018 of a heart attack in his own bed privately, but I was estranged from him. I didn't know him most of my life. Just give us a sense. I'm going to read something, and then I want you to label it with an emotion. Tell me about the emotion, how, when you hear this again, how it makes you feel, and anything you want to say about that period in time. It says, page 21, the warm breath that escaped my father's lips was heavy in my ear. The mucus in his lungs competed with each inhalation for more and more space, squeezing my father out of his own body. In that moment, I wished I were even smaller than I was. I wanted to be a baby again, but I felt as if time was speeding forward, growing me up too fast.
I was at that time, I wanted more of a relationship with my father, and I couldn't because of his illness. So every little bit that I got was so special to me. And the fact that he summoned me at that time to come and lie next to him when I was sneaking in just to peek in on him and see how he was doing, because you could actually hear his wheezing and his breath, his struggling. So when I was going to walk back away, he called me. He called my name, Reynaldo. And then that's when he invited me to come into his space, and I could feel his heat. I could feel his breath. I could smell the medicine that my mom had applied to him. And for the first time, I felt I had him for me. It was just my time, and nobody else existed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when my mom called to bring him his food that she always did, I was sneaking out before so she wouldn't see me in there in the bed with him, because I didn't know if she'd be mad at me or not.
Yeah.
But he didn't move. His when I snuck out, his arm just flopped, and I saw my mother try and wake him, and no response. And then I watched her face change, and she recognized, after calling his name, Santonino, that he passed. And then I realized that was it for me and my dad. Excuse me.
No, thank you. It's still raw, and I want to say thank you. We honor you. I'm sorry for your loss, and to write a book about it is more courageous. And each time you share that story, I think, for me anyway, when I read something like that, it takes my brain back to the point where my father left. And in every one of parts of your book, there is strength that comes from it, because it allows me to see what you were able to do with that part of your life. And I call you the alchemist, man, especially with what you've endured. We haven't even heard half of the story. You got to read the book, everybody. The last thing, and then we'll move on to something so we can not dwell on this. My father had died holding me in his arms. The most peaceful moment I've ever spent with him. The last one we ever were to spend together. I want to tell you this to bring a smile to your face. My dad, I didn't have that moment with my dad. He died by himself in a bed. And 3 months before, I went to a Starbucks to have coffee because I was estranged from him all my life. And we agreed to have coffee 2 or 3 months later every month so I could rekindle that relationship. And then he unexpectedly died. So I just want to say to you that you're a blessed man to have that moment, because there's many children who will not be able to make it to the bedside of their parent. And I really appreciate you sharing that in your book. So thank you. All right, collect yourself there if you want to take a sip of water. Why don't you hold up that book again there?
Absolutely.
Just tell us the title.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Angel finally found his wings. And one thing I want to point out is the title is actually the name that I took to call myself on the street. So that is what Angel references. Yeah.
Amazing. There's another nugget in the book about some place that had that partial name, somewhere, orphanage or something.
Yes, it was the Angel Guardian Home, which was the very first place the social worker took me to place me so I could be taken away from my family.
Yeah, it's funny. You know how the brain works. When you read something, then your brain goes inside and connects to something it knows. And I was having all these visions with the word angel. Everything from, of course, angelic Christmas. We have one on the Christmas tree at the top. To, I don't know if you ever remember, man, but when I grew up, I used to watch the Rockford Files. You know, Jim Rockford. And his buddy was Angel Lee, and he was a real ass. So every time I'm hearing the word angel coming up, I'm going like, you mother. So too much fun. Let's put something on the screen that I want to share. We'll put it on so that we can see it together. There's that amazing book. I want to bring something up here, and I talked about connecting the dots. One of the things I'm curious about is mental health and the beginnings, and so I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of this. It's called the Circle of Security, and throughout your book, I started thinking about this because I came across this in my own therapy from my brain injury. Plus, I come from a kind of a maltreatment, abusive type childhood. Look at this. Let's just enjoy it together. Everyone, what you see here is this is based on cognitive behavioral therapy. It's actually real. It's actually based on psychology. So you see the things going on the screen there, Ron? Why don't you just tell me what you see here, what it evokes in you when you look at some of these little vignettes from a child point of view?
The one from the little boy hanging from the tree, which I actually did in Brooklyn, that tree that was in the courtyard. I can relate to that a lot because I had a lot of people watching over me. This is prior to my father passing and my mother really suffering. And I got that. That's the one thing I can say. I understood and felt loved, and
Yeah.
I knew love. Then, my mom, when my father passed, my mom got sick and she needed someone. And my oldest brothers and sisters, who were out of the house for the most part and now had their own lives going on, couldn't really be there for her as she needed them. And she needed me, but I also needed her. So I get that. And I was happy to do it. At the same time, it took me away from my friends because I had to get on a bus with her and take her. And mind you, I'm 5 and 6 years old. The second one is the hardship the third one, is the hardship that took place. And I was beginning to see that life was changing. I've already lost my father. My brothers created hell at home, not to his doing. Believe me, I love my brother, but things had changed.
Yeah.
And now what was going to happen to me and who was going to be there was a question for me,
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about, I think it was Danny and the PTSD a little bit later. Some amazing and horrific things at the same time that I read there. So everybody, just for my context on this, when I'm reading the book here, we've got a story of Ron, but I go back to Ron, your childhood, and this is what children need. They need to be a safe haven, protect me, comfort me, delight in me, organize my feelings, because they can't understand emotions. They need a secure base. And I started reading your book and just drawing some thoughts, like you're one of 22 kids. So this is not disparaging in any way, but the reality is a child, when they have 22 others to compete with for love of a parent, the child doesn't understand that when they don't always get the attention or get what they're emotionally needing. Sometimes that can have an impact. And then it says, I need you to support my exploration, watch over me, delight in me, help me, enjoy with me. I need you to welcome my coming to you, always be bigger, stronger, wiser, kind. And I saw the shift in your life happen where a lot of this just crumbled. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was just context, everybody. In Plato's Garden, we're just connecting dots to psychology now, and that this is a man who had changes in his life. Let's get into. I'm starting into chapter 5 now as a reference. And not your typical hustler. I'm going to read something, but man, get us into this thing, and then I'm obviously, unfortunately, I have to ask you about explaining Charlie, which was one of the biggest villains in the book that I didn't like. There's a chapter at the end of the second page in chapter 5. Some Johns are concerned about me and my safety out on the street. They ask if I'm okay or if I need anything. Part of me wants to say, help me get out of here. The other part knows there is no escaping. Charlie will find me no matter where I am. When a John hands me a few extra dollars, I know it's either a guardian angel or somehow they know if I don't make the money, Charlie will beat the shit out of me or even kill me. Tell us about this.
Well, all that is quite true with the beatings.
So you met Charlie how? Where? Like just, it was in Boys the Scouts or something.
Yeah, when we were allowed to come home from Abbott House, the orphanage, fully, and from the group home. We were in Brooklyn, New York, in the Bushwick area on Central Avenue and Jefferson. And he happened to be considered a good person. He would take care of the guys, the teenagers, the young, kids, keep them active in the PAL League, which is the police athletic leagues for the summer, the Catholic basketball leagues. He would coach them. He would make sure they were doing what they're supposed to do, check on them. And the biggest thing, and I guess the thing that gave him the most sense of respectability, was he was a assistant Boy Scout master. And so that would take the boys away on day trips as well as weekend trips or overnight trips with the scouting, which was great. It was a great thing, and everybody would honor that. And he was looked at with respect and with trust, obviously. And he took an interest in me because I was the new kid on the block.
How old were you? Sorry, Rod, to interrupt. How old were you then?
I started the visits to there at 10. Okay. 11 is when I came back.
Gotcha.
And then the planning, I guess, or the indoctrination to him and who he was began about 11 and a half. He started while I was still coming home for trial runs. And sometimes he'd walk me to the train station when Tommy wasn't around. So yeah, he came with respectability and trust.
Yeah.
And there were results,
Yeah. And Tommy was your brother, one of your brothers.
He was my brother, 4 years older than me. Yes. And he was shared the time of the orphanage with me as well.
Yeah. When you, again, there's pictures in the book, when you look at a picture of Charlie, does it trigger you, or do you sort of handle that now that it's so far later? Are you able to even look at that photo?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is what allows me to live.
Yeah. Let me just put it on the screen there. There, everybody, you can see it. And I ask you that with respect. That's Charlie. And when was that photo taken?
During his time in prison. He died in prison. He had
Okay.
4 life sentences, and he died in prison 2 years ago, December.
Right. Okay, that I didn't know. Thank you for that. I gotta tell you, man, when I looked at that, I mean, it's almost ironic the name Charlie, and then I thought about Charles Manson, but that I didn't know this was maybe taken in prison. But this was I saw evil. It just seemed like an evil type of person. The look in the eyes, maybe there's sorrow. I actually wrote these words down on my book here. Looks deranged. Look at his eyes. And so when you first met him, I know it's a long time ago at an early age, he didn't appear that way to you then. He just appeared like most kids. Hey, he's my Boy Scout leader, right?
Yes, that's what he became. He became everything to me.
Yeah, amazing.
And I watched him work with the other kids who were older than me. I've always been associated with older kids. I've always fit in better that way.
Yeah, and you said something very inspiring. He was there. He sort of like he replaced. So again, going back to the circle of security, I think that you were seeking or searching for a father figure. So many of us, we attach to people, right? And there's something in the brain that happens. It releases these brain chemicals, and one of them is released that causes attachment. And we're drawn to people, and when we, as children, and when we need that attachment, the brain then creates this chemical. Oxytocin is one of them. And all of a sudden we can see people and we can get attached to them. And what I started learning throughout the book is despite everything, you kept going back and being part of Charlie's life, which is why this is such an important story you shared about your childhood and involvement in that, I don't know what you call it, profession or sector, teen prostitution. But it made me understand how, like it answered a lot of questions. Why are you still in that? Why didn't you call the police? Why are you still there? And then I started piecing it back as you told the story. You couldn't break away from it through the fear. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The fear, not so much to my personal safety, but the threat he made over and over against my mom, and what he would reveal to the system, to the state about her mental capacity, and that threat of him getting her put back into a mental institution and me being sent back to an orphanage. And then the physical beatings, which were added on later.
Yeah. You watch a lot of movies in Hollywood and things, and you hear in all of these stories. I know somebody personally who dealt with incest for 7 years. That they were very close to me. I won't tell you who for obvious reasons. And this was the one common thread, is that they were threatened. If you tell anybody, I'll deny it. If you tell anybody, I'll tell your mother. If you tell anybody. And so that just is like you're in prison, right?
Right. And my mother trusted him so much. He worked her to get as close as possible so that his word would be the word that carried weight with her when it came to me. And there are parts in there that talk about how she chose him over my sister Mary when she was challenging him on what his relationship, what he was doing in my life. She also, with me we're very big Catholics and I hadn't done my confirmation. And with that, he found that out, and he started to bring that subject up to her and worked it into their conversation where I needed to do my confirmation, and then introduced the idea that he could be my godfather. you have a confirmation God.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And here
absolutely.
was tying more knots into the relationship that he was establishing. And he worked her saying what he could do with me and make sure I would be safe and she
Yeah.
wouldn't have to worry anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, incredible. I'm just going to buzz into chapter 8 for a minute. Everybody, we're here with the author, Ronnie Hunter, of this amazing book, Angel Finally Found His Wings. My turn to hold it up. By the way, I mean, this guy's so nice. And thank Scotty over there for sending it, because it came in an envelope with Scott's name on it.
Yes.
Ron took the time to actually send me one, autograph it, and everybody, you got to get it. You got to post a review for him. You got to read it. Chapter 8, let's get you riffing on something here. I wrote down a few things, page 40 to 49. Fitting into something. You're age 10. Tommy's warning. So talk about those two things. What does it bring into your mind? Tell us about that. You were looking to fit into something, and you're age 10, and then there was this warning from Tommy about, I think, Charlie.
Yeah. Let's see. The time when the neighborhood kids already started to formulate their idea of what Charlie was without letting their parents know.
Yeah.
So there was always little talks about it. I didn't hear any of that until later. But they had shared it with Tommy, since Tommy was of their age, 4 years older. And they told him, you better watch out for your little brother. He has an interest in him. And he's known for doing things. And he elaborated some on it. Tommy didn't share that with me right away. Maybe he thought he didn't want that in my head at all. And maybe he just watched me from a distance.
Yeah.
But his absence allowed Charlie to get to me. And then when he found out on our walk home, a walk back to the train station to go back to Abbott House, I was telling him about Charlie, and he said, basically he was telling me, you stay away from him. But he never said why. He never said why. And I was confused because I was beginning to belong to the group, and he was taking an interest in me and making me feel very special, very special.
And thank you, Ron. And that came up as a thread in the book. There's another thing I wrote down here: faith, Christianity, faith versus Charlie's behavior. It says, I learned about the pillars of Christianity: love, kindness, forgiveness, values, and sin. I began to question what was going on in my life. These lessons were in direct conflict with the parts of my relationship with Charlie. He was going to be my godfather, but we were anything but God's son and godfather. This thing you said to me, and it had me going on a journey reading the book, and I'm sure anybody watching this be like, okay, you're a child. And throughout the book, everybody, when you read it, you constantly take me on a roller coaster, which is very clever, by the way, because I'm going to be under a lot of stress with cortisol flooding my veins. And unless you bring me back up to positive, I'm not going to read further. That's how the brain works, right? We can't be on the edge of our seat too long. That's why they use humor in movies and quips, right? It makes you sort of breathe. So yeah, you did that throughout, talking about Charlie, and it was almost like at these points where he was doing certain things to you, and then I wanted just to punch him out of my mind, and then you bring us back down to, but he cares for me. Moments of how he was looking after you and things. That's just horrible. But talk about faith, because you didn't talk a lot in the book, and there wasn't moments where I'm waiting a little bit going like, tell me you're praying somewhere. Tell me where's God in your life? Was your faith guiding you, or was it just something that wasn't there at the time?
I had introduction to faith and God and Jesus from my family. My mother and my father were very Roman Catholics, very strict about everything.
Yep.
Church lessons. But I was always a baby. So the way I got it was very filtered and watered down for me. But I saw how committed they were. And then I witnessed through my childhood what you did, or how you, when you spoke, how you spoke, and how you held up the priests and the nuns, and when we went to church, how solemn and holy the place felt. And I still carry that to this day. I love going in there. I get a connection. But I also knew that the most important thing for us was to be good, loving, kind, caring. And I saw that, and I watched my mother do that with her grandchildren and the children she had, and seeing how she treated our neighbors and just the things I saw. And then it also continued into when the nun was so kind to me at the orphanage, when I expected to get what I would have gotten had I still been at home in the closet, locked up and urinating, defecating on myself. I wouldn't get love and understanding and care. I would have gotten an ass whipping. So that's the way it would happen, and the verbal abuse. But I kept those, and I you find something like a food. You find it, you like it, you keep going back to it, you stay within that flavor. That's what the good and the bad were for me. When I tasted bad, I didn't like that. There was something wrong with it. I couldn't explain anything. I just knew what I felt, my faith. I believed in my parents' faith as well. And I took that, and then I created on my own. My faith also kept me alive and safe on the streets. I knew that it was my kindness, my demeanor, the way I handled myself, the way I looked at people and interacted with people that protected me. They didn't want to hurt me. I was a good kid. And many said that. And that carried out throughout my life. I mean, later I'll be right. I've got the second book done where I had it said to me, wow. You're a good guy, and I'm not going to let anybody hurt you. Meanwhile, I'm in a crack house, with going through all that, and people wanted to do something to me, but they protected me because I was a good guy. I took care. I cared about people. Yeah,
no, that comes very clear in the book. There was definitely something. They say God puts you in circumstances. My life circumstances certainly. I could tell you stories. And I always used to wonder, like I was born and raised or baptized Catholic, but I denied my faith because in my home it was violent, and I was I took the brunt of that physically, mentally, and I was angry, and I just didn't believe that. Okay, why would God do that? But I believe that, and this is hard to really rationalize because you can't. But God put you in a place in your life through this journey to have the resilience afterwards to do something with that story and help so many other children. Man, I'm so honored to meet and read this. You teased us about a second book, so that now you got to send me that so I can do a review or something for that one. That's pretty amazing.
Get it all in one.
No, I mean, that actually is interesting because as I got to the end, the chapters started flying by too quickly for me. And it was like, okay, I spent $80,000. It was gone. Boom. Okay, next. And a part of me was going like, there's more. Tell me more. There's more detail around that. Let's jump into, this was one of the most, I don't know how to say it, strange, but almost like surreal parts of the story. But I think this is why the book's so powerful about the message. I just want to tell you that I appreciate it on the back of the book, everyone. And John E. Elliott, who is he to you?
John was another person who came into my life much later, after my military career, after I had come out as my whole self and who I am. Yeah. So he was a person who was a director of the Kentucky State Mental Facility. Anyway, and he became a friend. He became a friend, and I met him through my recovery program, through AA. And in the stories, I would share some of my story, and he took an interest in me and wanted to know, and then revealed he was a psychologist.
Do me a favor and flip the book over and read what he wrote. There's just a small paragraph. Read it out loud for us.
Absolutely.
We'll full screen you while you do it. Okay. Just tell us again. It's from him.
This is from John Elliott, who is one of my dearest friends to this day, and who went through a lot with me to help me get to where I am today. If I had my way, this would be required reading for anyone who works with survivors of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. It's realistic, gritty, hard-hitting, hopeful, and a true bumpy ride that is rarely discussed amongst others. Ron clearly demonstrates how not to be a victim, but choosing to live as a survivor. After his appearance on the Oprah Winfrey special years ago, he felt compelled to share his story with dignity and without shame.
Thanks for sharing that. Everybody, we're here with the author, Ron Hunter, about his new book, Angel Finally Found His Wings. You're starting to see the method to my madness. I have you read that because the production I'm going to give you is a gift, so you can take that little segment and use it for marketing. You can play that. Everybody loves an author reading a part of their work. Well, there you are. And if you watch that back, that one little clip could be something special you put out there. What I was saying is that when you took us into the streets, that's the part where I was gripped the most. And I got to ask you this question. You wrote the book and you made a choice. I don't know if you were advised or if it's just something you felt. And I actually appreciate it because you didn't gloss over, but you put a lot of salacious details in there about your engagement with other, you call them Johns, but with other people. I think many of them were men, right? And those relationships. So why did you choose to write it that way? Because it was very hard to read. But then again, I think without that detail, I wouldn't have gotten really the understanding of just how that experience is for a child.
The first thing when I embarked on this, and my spouse Scott was such a significant part in keeping me on that line, was I said, it has to be true. I cannot make it lighter or gloss over it.
Yeah.
And everything that is in there has to have happened as I'm telling you it happened, because that's the way I can tell my story. I can't go from it because then it just won't be real, and it has to be my story.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I will say, there was a book a long time ago, and I don't know if that's right for me to say, but they presented a story of themselves and their journey, and it was hoopla on Book of the Month on an Oprah thing. And then they had to come back and retell that story and admit that it wasn't theirs totally. I'm sure you know the book I'm talking about.
Yes.
When I was told about it, when I brought it up to some of my colleagues about writing my story, finally thinking of doing, they introduced me to that book and said, you need to read this. This is kind of like that book. I won't say the name, but I said, oh, okay. And I bought it immediately on a layover, and I was reading it. And soon as I opened the story, the very first chapters and him talking about how he was placed on the plane, I said, this is not right.
Yeah.
This is not real, and
yeah, absolutely.
I knew it was from my sessions that I heard many people's voices and many people's stories, but he was presenting them as his own. And that infuriated me.
Yeah, I think it's a home run the way you wrote it. Some people may disagree with the details in the book, the fact that it's written that way. It has to be that way. One of the things in my first book, and I'd love to arrange somehow for you to read it and give me some feedback, is I wrote a chapter called "The Boy," which was purposely written about my life with my father, and in that it was I wrote it as almost like a fable, so I changed some things a little bit. A lot of people who read my book criticized me for writing about my dad, especially in my parents are Fijian, my roots are India, I'm Canadian, so I'm kind of a mixed bag. But I just thought, man, way to go. Good for you to write it that way. So let's get into just take us as deep as you want, but it doesn't have to be the exact those details. But one of the things that's really cool is it's going to seem strange, I think, to people, but I started thinking about my childhood when I had a paper route. All right, so I was one of those kids, right? There was stuff going on in my home I can't even repeat because of a drunken father. But I would get up at 5 a.m. on my 10-speed bike. I had 156 papers in my bag, the Vancouver province, they called it, Ron, when the typical paper route in the neighborhood was 30. So I would strap bags on both shoulders, 10-speed, and we lived in a neighborhood called Sunshine Hills, and it was up and down hills. It was ridiculous. All right, so I was probably about 13. Get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I can still in my mind see the map of my route. Out my door, 11229 Lion Road, on Lion Road, Sussex Crescent, etc. The thing that I got right away in your book was I started learning about your route, and it was unbelievable. So just comment a bit about that. So everybody, what I'm talking about is Charlie taught you how to be a child prostitute. And there were some places that you went, like Times Square. There was another department store or something. Yeah,
the department store was Richardson's.
Richardson's and
Second Street.
yeah, and then there was this thing about the windows and how he would watch it. Tell us some of that, because not for fun, but because I want people to understand what the hell you had to go through. You were told to get out there and make money. But take us through, and then there was the subway and the toilets. Just a little bit about what this is you going to work. This is your route. Just tell us some things about that.
I actually, and you're talking about my path, my
Yeah.
walk. The Guardian had done a piece on me, and I actually walked with them down my streets. We literally walked down. I stood in front of those store windows and I showed them how. And I put them in a place so that they can understand me looking in the window, the reflection that behind me. That was the point. Not so much looking in the window, which I did because I had to play it fully. But the window was a mirror for me to see who was around me and where they were looking, if they were looking at me. And if I could make contact with them, once I saw they were looking at me, I'd look up at them in the window reflection. But it gave me a sense of protection that I was not doing anything but looking in the window shopping.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And he's taught me that.
Yeah. See, I had no idea. And so here's the thing. There's pictures in the book again. I wish I had them for the screen, but there's pictures of Times Square. And I know this goes back to a long time ago. But my question is like, I've been to Times Square, and people, this stuff goes on in the world still. We know that, and that's why you're an advocate to get this out there. But, dude, I had no idea that I could, if I go to Times Square, I could be standing beside somebody who's looking in a window, who's looking. There's all this stuff going on to hook up and connect children with adults for prostitution. It scares the hell out of me. How did you actually? Where did you get the strength to cope with that?
My fear of Charlie having drilled it into me of his threats. I had to do it because if I didn't, my mom would suffer. She would be taken away. I would be taken away. But I wasn't the primary focus of that. Yeah. I had already accepted that I can deal with this. And one day this too will end. Yeah. But I just had to hold out to protect her. And I put up with everything for that reason. And then when I was out there, there were parts of me, and again, it came back into my life. You know, you hear the stories of what can happen to kids. Yeah. There were times when he had beaten me so bad, I was hoping if I got a bad John who would hurt me and would take me out of this misery. You know, it was a lot of that. The sexual abuse he had on me as well, and then the threats of revealing that. And then he took it to the next level, not only for my mom, but he was going to share it with my football family, you know, the community that we had established with them, the scouting people, the neighborhood, which he actually did when I finally broke away. Yeah. He actually honored what he said he would do. Yeah. And it was horrible to get the calls from people saying, you know, Charlie is doing this and he said this and we don't believe him. And he's just, you know, anyway. Yeah.
Thank you. Hope catch your breath there. You doing okay? Because I know you've done this. You've done it so many times, but I know when the perspective I have, and those who haven't read the book, I have it. If I understand now that you lived this from age whatever, 5 or so or whatever up till that this was every day. So, talking about it back now might be painful, but, it's something that you can talk about. So I'm purposely checking in so I'm not torturing you to recount every moment of this. To put in perspective, everyone, there's about 40 chapters and an epilogue in your book, right? And, so I'm, from my little notes here, because I'm mindful of time, I want to cover off a few more things. There were some really interesting parts of the story that came up. Along your journey, you met a guy, James or Jim. You met some people or someone who you formed a deep relationship with, and that's on page 1, chapter 23. And so just tell me about that.
I think you're talking about James.
James,
person. Yeah. Okay. Because you cut out and we froze and you cut out.
Oh, yeah. James, yeah. Sorry, I'll go back again. I just wrote a note here in my little paper. James, I put meet meets a good guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
James saved my life. It's with James coming into my life, and it wasn't a easy meeting. But he saw in me what and who I am today, and he helped to free me and allow me to grow and become a whole person. And realize that I was more than what was happening to me, and I had been violated, and that these things weren't normal, and that I can have a normal life. Now, I want to make sure that it's very clear, as wonderful as he was, and I get emotional about this because it took me a long time to put him in the same space. He was a John first.
Yeah.
And I remember, I never wanted to put him in that frame. I always kept him out of that box. But during the writing of this, I had to finally acknowledge that, yes, as much as he did and loved me and cared for me and everything, he was the most important person in my life. And he sacrificed some of his life for me. He, too, was a pedophile. And that broke my heart.
Thank you for disclosing that and that part of the story. Another example of a victim, a childhood victim, something that you wouldn't even know. You come across someone. Again, if we had that little slide there about circle of security, I'm with you in that book, man, and I'm loving you in the story, and I'm thinking like, here's finally a glimmer of hope. And again, the circle of security, you've come across somebody, and I'm just projecting on you what I know about brains, and that your little brain in your head saying that there's something that's making me feel like I can trust here. And then here we go again. So the part about Jim, people can get the book and read it. And what I marveled at is this guy was divorced, right? But he had children from a previous marriage, wife.
Correct.
That's a part of the story that I think is really important to be told, that people who are Johns, behind them are human beings, and if you dig deeper into their stories, I asked the question, I wonder if you ever thought about it, what made this person go into that track, I don't know. It comes back to me to childhood. It's always something that's missing from childhood. I don't know if I'm generalizing.
We spoke a lot about it because, as I said, the introduction to James was through my time on the street.
Yeah.
The dynamics of the relationship kept changing and growing, and the more he wanted to be a part of my life and find out what the truth of my story was, why I was there, it changed. He became a mentor, and ultimately a father figure, and he risked so much, but he proved himself to me to be worthy of my trust by what he did. And it wasn't his words, it's his actions and his follow through on everything. And then we had the come to Jesus moment where he was going to reveal who he was in his truth. And that was, that's in the book. But it came down to, I didn't know what he wanted from me. I really didn't, because I was giving him what I thought he wanted and what I was getting paid for. But apparently that wasn't what he wanted. Ultimately, he wanted to rescue me and to save me and to let me have a life. I don't know what he saw in me, but I'm blessed that he did. And I finally asked him, what do you want from me? He said, I wanted help.
Yeah, I remember that part in the book. Everybody, we're here with Ronald Hunter, the author of Angel Finally Found His Wings. And that part in the book about, sorry, do I call him James or Jim? Which one is it? Is it James?
James, this is James.
Yeah. But that was a part that when you first introduced him in this story stood out for me. I remember where you were supposed to see him and hook up together, and then he didn't show up, and you were very stressed. But he came back again, and he paid you for 3 or 4 hours money for the time he didn't spend with you in a relationship. And that to me was the first. So I could really connect and relate to that. I was thinking that, man, at a young child age, how do you know the difference? Is that real love? Is there something else going on here? And I almost wonder if because there's so much of this that you were dealing with, if your brain and yourself lost the ability to see, what was fact and what was fiction, what was safety, and what was not. And then it comes, so as we're getting closer to the end here, you opened up at some point and you revealed your entire situation to James. And then came Bob. Tell us a little bit about that. Another crazy part of this.
Yeah. Well, Bob came into my life, into the story, because Charlie had done something on the street that we had to stay away from for a while. Yeah. And in booking, I'll tell you. And so to avoid 42nd Street was a safe measure that we took. And we went to another area that was known, but this was more of a higher end kind of prostitution for boys. Yeah. It was called 53rd and 3rd in Manhattan. And I was introduced to that awareness of it from one of my Johns, who literally said, after the encounter, was complimenting me in his mind, saying, you don't belong on 42nd Street. You are way too good for 42nd Street. You can be getting much more money for your services. There's places 53rd and 3rd where the higher clientele, the higher white collar, maybe business executives and stuff go and pay much better, and it's a much safer environment for you. Yeah. So I don't know if you're interested, but that's where you belong. Yeah. And that's how I got there. Yeah. And I told Charlie about that because we had to make money. I was going to get beat one way or another. So my whole focus was not on, and I know you said, did I know right, wrong, or what was good or bad? My focus when I was on that street was to survive and to keep Charlie away from my mom and his threats, and also to stop getting my ass whooped. Yeah. I hate to say it that way, but it was that kind of a beating. Yeah. It was a very violent beating.
I understand.
And the sexual beating. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's just even hard to fathom, but reading the book, I totally remember some of those parts you talked about. And it's, it just floods my mind. I think about all the movies and things I've seen, just stories that are produced about this particular subject, where it's always the same thing, though, whether it's a woman or a man, and, they're making the money and they're bringing it back to their pimp and they're being beaten up and threatened. I mean, it's incredible how you can escape that. And I think that's where we want to go as we wrap up the storyline. You've been amazing to give us so much time. Is that at some point things shifted, and we won't give away everything in the book. We want people to read it. But there's the FBI, a couple of FBI agents showed up, and then there was some surveillance, and all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of stuff where, I think at that point, you felt that there was a door opening or a light and a way out. Just tell us a bit about that part of this.
Well, that was all surprise to me. I had no idea who the people were that I was engaging with or servicing. But apparently I had somebody, and the person that came was revealed to me through these agents and to James when they came to his house to introduce themselves and why they were there, was Bob. Apparently Bob was affiliated and had been connected to and with drugs and money and child prostitution ring. And these were things that they had said to us. Now, the interesting thing about that was when the person called up, the concierge called up from the desk and said, there are two gentlemen here who want to come up and speak to you. And he had to give them that permission. I said, why would they want? They said it was agents.
How old were you at that point?
I was almost 16 years old.
Yeah. So starting to ask questions and starting to rationalize. Yeah.
And when he came out, I said, why would they come? What do they want with you? Because I know what I'm doing, but I didn't associate it to me. So he said, in what I do, the people who give my name as a reference, and they have to go for background checks and government security. So I'm thinking, okay, good. So I'm still watching Good Times,
Yeah.
So
Well,
then they come to the door.
exactly.
They
Well,
come
part
to
of
the
the
door. Yeah.
part of that, and in my own self, because I can't even put myself in your shoes, man. I was getting angry, going like, tell him everything, and but now I really understand the fear. That's how deep, and I understand deep fear is. Why you don't break the chains of things that are very evil like this, because you want to be safe, right? And that part of it. So this all went on for a year or so, the surveillance and all this, and then I think what I read was something. The truth about Bob came out about his involvement in
Correct.
what was that? Just organized.
Well, it was organized crime that was involved with it. And that wasn't new to me, that I would have somebody. I had clients who, but it came out that he was part of something, and I had been during our time that we were spending together, in the presence of exchanges of drugs, of money, and with people. I didn't know any of what they were talking about, because we dealt in names. The only name I knew him by was Bob McDevitt. Okay? So when they presented names to me and pictures, which they wouldn't physically show me, they said they had them and they produced them out of their briefcase, and they were saying these names. Now, I did recognize some of the other names, but I kept saying, I don't know. Maybe if you tell me the names of, I can tell you, but I don't know. You're saying names I don't know, and I really didn't know. But anyway, so that's the way it was, and that changed my world. Sorry.
Yeah, I absolutely. And coming back again, you're a child. Your brain, like none of this makes sense. So I understand that from that perspective. An adult would question and ask and try to put things together and just never give up, relenting. But a child, the guy's name's the name. I don't know that person. It's innocence, and that's what hurts me so much about how you were hurt, and why I pray for you every day for the rest of your life. That we shouldn't, and I honor Scott too, because we shouldn't. I've been through a different kind of abuse, and I know that the amygdala, the part of the brain with memories, it's always there. And every day, I know you're nodding, but you gotta keep working, and that's why I think you're doing this work. As we get to the end, I going back to James. Something he paid the ultimate price too with his career. I think with the FBI involvement, he lost a lot of. And then there were some shifts there. He bounced back a bit. And then James passed, so you lost somebody close. I thought that was very heartwarming, that part of the story. People have to read it.
The important person in my life was gone, and he knew my whole story.
Yeah. And again, I'm going back to this thing. It's like there you are again. You formed another important person in your life, and all the circle of security, and it's gone. And it's like, now what do I do? So the last part of the book really, I was just like, oh my God, when will this end? The funeral, and then the part about the estate. And again, I won't steal the thunder of the end of the book, but just the betrayal. And then you ended up on drugs and back into a cycle again, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
AA, you were
I had and was letting me be normal. You know, was gone.
Yeah.
And everything I thought was real turned out not to be.
Yeah.
You know.
And so you came through that. We're gonna give you a round of applause for that. You came through that, and then you sort of everything changed. You cleaned yourself up, etc. There was a question that I won't have time for, but you were married before to a woman for a decade, and
magnificent woman.
Yeah, and you knew you were gay at what age? What age did you start learning about that?
I know this called gay now. We refer to it as gay. I knew I was different. I knew I was more interested in the boys than I was the girls. Yeah. And when I revealed all this to my sister, when I was interviewing a lot of family members, my one who took care of me in the book, Margie, she said very innocently, "We always knew you were special." And
well, you are special. And
so I said, "Okay, that's one way." But
because
no, I was going to say, and when my ex-wife presented the idea of marriage, which was great in my eyes. But my thing was to be always honest. However it comes back on me, I have to tell my honesty and my truth.
Yeah.
And I can deal with that.
Yeah.
But I can't deal with lying about it or hiding it and then being discovered and then having to witness the pain I've caused another person, because I know what pain feels like. I know what disappointment and deception. So I refuse to do that. And I told her, okay, if that's what you want, and it's in the book, I think I cut some things out because they go to the other side of the book.
Sure.
But I said, if you want to marry me, you need to know who you're marrying. You need to know all of me, not just the lovely part you're seeing now in me as a soldier and all that.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll need a couple of hours of you just to listen to me tell who I am and share my story. And then with all the information, then you can make a decision with open eyes. And she said, okay. And we did that. We sat in the car, and about 2 hours later, I'm telling her, I could see her facial expressions. Like, she was great at letting me explain everything, tell her everything. At the end, I said, okay, now you've heard everything. If there's any questions, you can ask me. But you know who it is now. So you take the time and you think about what you heard and what you want to do. And then we'll go from there. And then within seconds, she looked at me, held me, my hand, and she looked at me and she said, "Is November okay?"
That's sweet. Yeah. Talk about the definition of a very special woman. Oh my goodness. And then you came full. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say she's so amazing that she helped facilitate Scott and I being able to be married and get all the documentation to allow us to buy a home, because proving that I was divorced, I was without children, no financial commitments to her. She did that, and she actually met Scott, and she's just amazing. And she's happy now, and I'm happy, and she's met Scott.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. What a story. And I said I wouldn't forget about Danny. We won't go into a lot, but I have a special place in my heart for the things I read. But Danny was not a good dude. I mean, there were things I read in there about but it was PTSD, right?
Yes.
And like there were rape and beating and locking you up too, and then things that. But this is such a dear topic to me, because I struggle with a form of PTSD. I learned it through my own therapy to get well, especially since my brain injury a few years ago. But which is from PTSD. Everybody, if you've ever experienced it, it's things that happened long ago that just seem to appear as happening now. And the amount of people who go away to service, and you served, so we thank you for, obviously your service in your country. But that's just a horrible thing, that people are sent into war to sometimes they come back and they got this thing, PTSD, that changes their life. So how's he doing? Is he still alive?
No, Danny unfortunately passed away. And
so sorry.
Yeah, he I had to tell him that I forgave him, that I knew he wasn't doing it without the damage that had been done to him. I had to let him know that I didn't hold him accountable for it. I understood he was responsible, and that helped us get together. And that happened at my mother's funeral. That that was very powerful for us. I was in the military at the time. And he took great pride in the fact that I was in the military. He loved the military. Attended all the graduations of the academies, the basics and stuff for the younger nephews and stuff. But I needed him to know that I as an adult understood, but as a child, I only wondered what was happening and why he was doing this to me. But I knew it was not right. The information I found out about Danny, and I need to make this clear, is that it was shared with me through my family, my direct line of connection to my brother.
I see.
They shared their their understanding in their relationship and what he was with them prior to going to Vietnam and then coming after.
I see.
Because I then got the after,
Yes.
prior. So there were things that happened that they shared to me. So I want to make sure that.
No, thank you. Right, thank you. Again, everybody, in the book, there's a lot of pieces about this. But again, why I like the book so much is there's so many threads in there, and PTSD, mental health, addiction. These are other pieces that are very important topics. We are, wow. I mean, I told you that an hour would blow by. We've been doing this now for an hour and 15, and you're probably out of gas, and Scott's going like, just wrap it up. So
he's my biggest supporter. He is so adamant. I'm blessed.
Well, I want to honor Scott. So Scott, you're there. I'm just giving you a wave. I honor you, and we'll dedicate part of this show, obviously, that the strength in the life of anybody is their partner. So that's a pretty cool story. So when you and Scott got married in 2004, I think it was one of the first states to recognize same-sex marriages, right?
It was the first state to have legal marriage. Yes.
Yeah.
Vermont, I think it was Vermont. That was the one that had union. Yeah, that's correct.
This is a question might not be clear, or can't be answered, but I had this question come up in my mind about child prostitution, and if there was something in the book that really opened this question up for me about, I think it was through the story on James, is that if the world accepted, same-sex marriages, same relationships, if the world accepted it, do you think that would have an impact on all of those people have to go sort of in the underground to do things to quench their needs?
I really couldn't tell you that. The thing that I want to make sure is clear is same-sex relationships is not equivalent to pedophilia. And what the disease of pedophilia is not anything to do with whether you're homosexual or heterosexual. That's a separate thing in itself. So
yes,
whether he would have done it or any of them would have done it because they do it with females. So it has nothing to do with that, a sexual identity. That's what their disease was, their state.
Yeah.
Or is.
Yes. Well, thank you. And there's I know the world has seen that big ugly story that came out of the United States with that island and all, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm sure you have a lot to say on
people well.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have a lot to say on that. Maybe if I could plant a bug when the next book's out or any time, we'll have you back because I'm interested in that as well. A lot of the work I do in my platform is media-based, and it's bringing stories to actually help people understand the world better. So that one's very on my mind. Let's now go to wrap up with some really exciting things that I want to honor you with. So you ready? You ready to have some fun? Okay.
First of all, you've honored me by being on your show and letting me speak about this and advocate. So I want to say thank you for that opportunity. Angel finally found his wings is everyone's story. It's not just me alone.
Oh, you're welcome, man. I appreciate it. And like I said, this story has had threads in connecting in my lives through people I've met. So, especially being a Canadian, you know that every country, this thread is unfortunately. All right, so we are going to everybody. We've been doing this segment for a bit now. We're going to go into for a couple minutes imagining with AI. Ron, you're familiar with AI, right? Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I am.
All right, so this is a segment I've been doing. We're going to put some on the screen here. Just have fun with it. So I asked AI. I said, "Hey," because I told AI the story. I've collaborated, so I put into AI a bit about your book, a bit about your story, a bit about where you were as a child, being forced into child prostitution, and then the story, and then the redemption, and then what is he doing now? So I asked AI to create a picture of you in the beginning, of you sort of in the middle, and as the future, Ron. So here we go. Are you ready? Drum roll.
Okay.
All right. And these are gifts. I'll send them to you. This is what AI came back with. A young Ron Hunter during his turbulent childhood, looking scared, alone in the dark, small room. He's around 5 years old with dark hair, wearing worn-out clothes. The room is dimly lit. Sense of sadness and despair. Label the emotion. Mental health hacks here. What emotion are you feeling right now?
Sadness for him, because I know what his life is going to be for the next few years.
Yeah.
Hurt. I don't even have anger yet because I don't know what is to be angry about.
Thank you.
That's it, really. I feel so sad. And
Thank you. Let's go on to the next one. Ron at 18, an 18-year-old Ron Hunter. And I took your picture and gave it to AI, so they used that picture to come up with this vision.
I see myself in both of them.
Yeah. So I'll read this out loud for the sake of those on the podcast audio only. An 18-year-old Ron Hunter, looking determined, courageous. He finds his way out of the dark, oppressive environment. He is standing outside in the daylight for the first time in years with a hopeful expression. He's matured, wearing casual clothes. He's accompanied by a caring family who helped him escape. The background shows a brighter, safer environment symbolizing freedom and trust. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that is wonderful.
One word, label your emotion right now.
Surviving.
Okay, love it. I'm looking right at you on the
eyes looking up and out.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And finally, do you want to see the future? The future,
Sure.
Ron?
Sure.
Maybe Scott will enjoy this one. The future, Ron Hunter in the future, looking happy and content, standing beside his partner, Scott. They're in a bright, beautiful outdoor setting surrounded by nature. Ron is smiling, holding his memoir in his hand, symbolizing his journey and achievements. The background shows a peaceful, hopeful world filled with love, trust, and joy, reflecting a life of happiness and fulfillment. Congratulations, man.
My God, that's my life right now, that picture. That's why finding that trust, hope, faith, and the power of love. Scott is that power of love. And there were other examples of that, but that is the love part. The faith was in the people who did the good things to me, and I held on. I chose to hold on to the good in people, the kindness, the love, the caring. I refused to let the darkness be a part of my life. And then when you asked something about the power Charlie might have on me, he had absolutely no power.
Amen.
To give him power would have been for me to be victimized again. And
Amen. Oh, that's beautiful. God, you're a very talented guy. You put your words together. I was going to go, did you pre-script that? Because that should be somewhere. Let's just go back from there to there to there. That says it all.
Crying back here. He had to get up and walk. He can't believe you've done this, and wow.
Thank you. So imagine with AI, we have two more honors for you. One is I write these. I'm just going to bring something onto the screen here. Everybody, you see my notebook. So as you're talking, I write down four words. It's not scripted. That as I get to be in your heart and all that I find honor you. The first word is love. Comes out of you. You are love, and don't let anybody ever say that you're not a good man, because you are. Number two is heroic. You're a hero. Anyone who's done what you've done and brought this story to change the world is a hero. Three is resilience. Resilience is a leadership term they talk about a lot, but until you understand going from it's like the alchemist, what it takes to be resilient. Everybody read this man's book and just, even for a moment, try to stand in the shoes of him at a young age and who he is today. Resilience. And the last one is trailblazer, because I know some of the things you've done and what you've done, even things like the lawsuit, the Child Victims Act, all that stuff, dude, the next book, all that shit you're doing, you're trailblazing, because people like you come out. Others, sometimes they don't always support them. You are a trailblazer. So on that note, we're going to take this off the screen for just a sec, and we're going to even give you another honor. I'm a published author, and I pride myself in writing reviews. In fact, Ron, some of my reviews, Amazon has come back and said, would you review some of our products? Because I guess they like the way I do it. I'm going to read this out loud for you, and I want you to relish in it, you and Scott, to know this is what I feel about your book. This will come
on camera with me?
Yes, absolutely. Bring him in here. Oh, let me remove that.
He's much a part of this.
How you doing, bro?
I'm good.
Scott, you're. I just want to say, God bless you. You're an amazing man, and when you guys will watch this back together. I know.
Oh yeah.
And we're connected for life. We're friends now. You're part of my tribe. This is what I wrote about the book. It's posted on Amazon.ca in Canada, so it's international review, and it's gone live. A topic: a powerful journey of resilience. A must-read memoir. 5 stars. Posted June 4th. Ron, known as Angel during his years of exploitation, offers an intimate glimpse in his tumultuous childhood living under the control of a manipulative pimp while trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy with his family and friends. The narrative from childhood to adulthood is crafted with a dual consciousness, combining young Ron's raw perspective with his older self's reflective insights. This unique storytelling approach adds depth and immediacy, making the reader feel every moment of his harrowing journey. The book's structure, with its short, fast-paced chapters, propels the story forward, like scenes in a motion picture, making it hard to put down. Despite the heavy and often disturbing content, Angel finally found his wings. It's a necessary read for anyone who cares about the welfare of children. It sheds light on the harsh realities faced by victims of child exploitation, prompting readers to look closer at their surroundings and question how they can help those in need. Ron's resilience and ultimate triumph are nothing short of inspiring. Without giving away too much, the ending of this memoir is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and possibly of joy and healing after immense suffering. I deeply honor Ron's courage in sharing his story and highly recommend this book to anyone seeking a powerful, enlightening read. Congratulations, Ron and Scott.
Wow.
Thank you.
Tom, thank you so much.
Okay. Whoops, I just got to add you back there because one more thing. We're not done yet. There's one more honor.
Oh my
one more honor. So
Wow.
you may not know this, but when I created the show, people who come on have heroic stories that came out of the dust. And there's only 1% of people in the world who can come on my show and reveal the story of how they turned something into something, because most people won't. That's why you're special. And so I created an award, and you're going to get it. I'll have to get your address. You've heard of the challenge coin?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, started in the World War. There's a little sleeve that comes with it. The challenge coins were basically created soldiers would carry them in their pockets to create community, Ron. So if you and I were in the same unit and you didn't have your coin, you'd have to buy drinks.
Absolutely.
And yeah, absolutely. And dude, you said AA. My dad was in it for 23 years. I get it. And they have their own version. These coins are used all over the world. Maybe there should be a coin called Angel, something that you develop for all of the people that you bring along. Just a seed. The front of the coin, I'll put it up here, is the art.
God.
The art of the show. Now they're hand painted and minted, so they're raised lettering. But the back is probably what I'm so proud of. The back is the intricate detail of the hero's journey narrative by Joseph Campbell.
Oh my God.
That was so hard to do, but it is so, you can't even do justice. It is so amazing. And those who haven't read Joe Campbell's hero's journey narrative, you know it. I want to show you one more thing. Years ago, when I had to come out of the shadows about my own story, I had that hero's journey tattooed on my shoulder.
Oh, wow.
And as a CEO from industry where I came from, I was always ashamed. I didn't want people to see it. But now I show people. People, and I show people like you, because you can say, you know what, I get it. So congratulations and welcome to the Quiet Warrior community. There's across 17 countries now. We have around 250 of these awards. A very small percentage. So congrats.
Thank you for having me be here to share Angel's story, and thank you for welcoming me and letting me be a part of something so wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. So we're gonna say goodbye, but we're not gonna say goodbye to you forever. You'll be back again. So everybody, find that true passion and purpose, like you've heard from Ronald Hunter and Scott, who we honor in the show today, and live that life, no matter what anybody says, that you deserve and desire. And we'll see you again on the Quiet Warrior Show. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
offline, ending the stream now.